Thanks to my Patreon supporters for making videos like this possible, as well as exclusive videos you can only get over there for as little as $1 a month. Thanks, and now on with the show. I have been doing this whole games criticism thing now for close to a decade. In some circles, I am considered part of the old guard of this whole video essay thing, or whatever you want to call it. I've seen people talk about the so-called glory days of YouTube, and subsequently found out they mean like 2020. I am a dinosaur. Now, look, I don't plan on stopping this anytime soon. I legitimately have more than enough projects I'm excitedly working on, let alone the endless pile of ideas I haven't touched yet, to last the channel years to come. I love this weird job too much. But the truth is, after 10 years, it is ridiculously hard to get me excited about big new games. I mean, when we're going to be paying 80 quid for Mario Kart 9 or Grand Theft Auto 6 or Assassin's Creed 74, how could I be? Indeed, for the first time in years, I have skipped so many of the games people are talking about. Those big names I'd previously have felt some kind of professional duty to at least educate myself on. This is my job, and I cannot justify the cost of this stuff. Enjoy your Switch 2s, everyone, I guess. I say all of this to preface that when I get a game through that I do spend time with, that I can't stop thinking about, forget notable. To me, that is monumental at this stage. And indeed, such a game has come through. It is a small new thing, and it has taken over my life in a way I didn't expect. Without being too self-aggrandizing here, as the guy who analyzes Hitman missions, I can safely say that this game is the one that has come closest to capturing World of Assassination's chaotic magic. And lo and behold, it's a game I'm willing to bet a whole lot of you probably haven't heard of, that would otherwise fly completely under your radar, below the constant noise about the biggest games and how the medium is supposedly dead as a result of the business practices surrounding their production, release, and coverage, within what is arguably the most heavily industrialized art form of them all. And the game I am talking about is skin deep. Now, if you watched my video rounding up the demos I'd played during Steam Next Fest, it's perhaps a name you recognise, a name accompanying the lofty title of my most anticipated game. And as far as my expectations go, Skin Deep has far exceeded them, morphing into something far more compelling than even what its demo provided, utilising its web of systems to create not only the best player-driven comedy game since World of Assassination, but one of the most engrossing immersive sims I've played. See, part of my worry a few months ago was the ease with which its demo's few challenges could be overcome. Whether the small, contained levels and limited guard placement would allow players to make the most of the absolute wealth of tools before them, the systemic possibilities said tools allow for. I argued in that video that, well, the depth of that immersive sim, the difficulty, wasn't really the point. Instead, it was more so that you simply got to exist in another Blendo Games world, whose comedy seemed to breathe with every step you took through it. It's not about the game, man. It's about the atmosphere. Well, turns out that was all nonsense. Those demo levels simply form Skin Deep's tutorial. The full game, then, is not only hilarious, providing that aforementioned living space, but that immersive sim DNA also seems far more intrinsically burrowed into Skin Deep than I initially anticipated. Make no mistake, as far as ImSims go, Skin Deep is absolutely legit. Indeed, as soon as those tutorial levels are done, things get hairy fast. The tools you were initially loaded with suddenly become far sparser. What previously consisted largely of throwing whatever you could at the wall and seeing what got sucked into the vacuum of space now sees you taking shelter wherever you can as the once readily available vents, windows, and trash chutes are shut off, locked by codes that refresh with every run and must be deciphered and entered anew. The space surrounding the ship can be freely explored without fear of suffocation, but quickly sees you forced to dodge minefields in order to do so. The skulls may be numb, but should you get caught, their brawn and more moreover the military tech they readily deploy, is more than enough to overpower your meager brain. All this to say, protagonist Nina is less John Master Chief and more John McClane. Kind of an asshole, things will go wrong for them, and they'll frequently find themselves running on broken glass barefoot. As such, Skin Deep becomes less a playground as much as it is a stealth game, deliberately complicated by frenzied resource management. Anything and everything can be picked up and used to your advantage, but that limited inventory is quickly filled and depleted with similar efficiency. Like the cats that form your crew and that you're tasked with rescuing, you'll find yourself lurking in the shadows and pawing whatever you can find onto your unsuspecting enemy's head, then quickly scurrying away as they try to swat you down. The thing is though, as daft as they may seem, these enemies do frequently manage to throw a spanner in the works of even your most carefully laid plans. Plans incentivized through speedrun-inspiring mission timers and the like. So more often than not, if you're anything like me, you throw absolutely everything you've got at them and try to escape the cloud of systemic unpredictability you've now unleashed upon these cramped interiors. It was by about mission 4 or so where I realised that I was trying to play this like a stealth game, and yet every room I left behind looked like a goddamn war zone by the time I was done with it, and moreover, I felt like I was absolutely playing the game as intended. Rather than worry about optimising my strategy and times, I was far more enthralled with the scrapes I somehow managed to get myself into and subsequently out of. The explosions I caused as a result of piercing a hand sanitizer dispenser with a lighter, or losing track of my inventory and accidentally chucking TNT instead of an old Apple core. The maelstrom I caused as I got an enemy to chase me into a room where I was ready to throw a hack grenade at a turret primed to mow me down, turning the tables on its owner. Those moments where I'd really want to pick up that super useful item, but I couldn't because my pockets remained filled with respawning dude heads demanding I let them go, all creating noise that would draw other guards to my attention, all while I prowled for clues to open the airlock, so I could satisfyingly pop them one by one into the endless nothing of space. This is a game where you can beat the mission after you've technically died, because an enemy walked into something neither of you predicted while your health bar depleted. It's a game where the sheer chaos, the number of things happening, and calculations having to be figured out can tank your frame rate, and in some rare cases pre-release could be game-breaking, but as long as you can somehow scrape your way to the other side, the game seems to say, hell yeah, that was fun. That is to say, it is totally on my absurdist wavelength. Now, of course, there is a narrative underpinning all of this, and it's funny. It's all formed of that unique Blendo sense of humour and retro-futurist style where things aren't quite right and time and space are messed with, in favour of creating an atmosphere where even the most absurd has been crushed down into what our characters perceive as a mundane, hyper-capitalist mush, a heightened version of our own reality where deep space piracy is akin to any other corporate nothing job. It makes sense then that we're not playing a silent protagonist here, far from it, but instead a somewhat embittered asshole, one who understandably doesn't have a lot of time for the crazy emails she gets from her co-workers. I'm sure many can relate, even if in Nina's case those co-workers happen to be feline in nature. As a continuation of the style developed through 30 Flights of Loving and Quadrilateral Cowboy, it's still brilliant, but now more than ever, it feels less like that's the story you'd come to a Blendo game for, because it's not your story. See, what I really love about Skin Deep's storytelling is that beyond its many words, when you take a second and look through the smog of explosions and violence, the manner in which its systems have been carefully weaved together consistently defaults to slapstick. In some cases, Skin Deep does allow you to go in all guns blazing, and yet finding a fully loaded rifle, replete as it is, with all the mechanical minutiae other games mercifully automate, checking how many you've got in the chamber, manually loading a round after every shot, and making sure you don't accidentally throw the thing, likely doesn't even come close to the joy, the relief you will feel about stepping into a kitchen and finding a packet of pepper or a bar of soap in the shower. Indeed, bananas beat bullets basically every time, where the guarantee of a pratfall-induced stun state and the subsequent opportunity to then freely slam your opponent into whatever smashable electronics adorn the walls of your ship trumps a gunshot, with its now half-alive but fully alert guard now stampeding your way. And so, in this sci-fi immersive sim, your best bet, what you are mechanically incentivized to do, is to channel your inner Harry Lloyd. You know, making a comedy game is ridiculously hard. Wiring that comedy into the very mechanics and systems themselves, having players construct their own jokes, is even harder. Usually, as was the case with Hitman, the comedy emerges as a byproduct of mechanical chaos. Suddenly, a style known for its high-stakes self-seriousness, its series incentivizing of becoming the true silent assassin, shifts towards an absolute clown show, with 47 playing it totally straight the entire time. What Blendo Games has done with Skin Deep, then, is seemingly invert that formula. These are mechanics where comedy is programmed directly into the game's visual style, its writing, and crucially, its systemic incentives presented to players. Skin Deep looks, reads, feels like pure cartoon, and yet when you get to the end of a level, leaving a trail of destruction behind you that represented countless moments of not only panic and serendipity, but your own ingenuity, Skin Deep feels as if it should be genuinely counted alongside the defining texts of its sort of genre. It's comedy forward, but goddamn does it feel good to play. And when I find myself talking about a title like that, readily and frequently comparing it to possibly my favourite game, and you find out it costs just 15 ruddy quid, it makes you wonder what we're even doing here. Who cares about GTA 6? Who gives the remotest shit about Call of Duty 27? Who can seriously say that gaming is dying when, for the price of those games that will dominate the conversation in this industrialized hell of a medium for about a week and then be swiftly forgotten about, you can buy 5 copies of the most inventive games I've played in years? Skin Deep is special, not only because it's a game I will continually return to in order to uncover its many secrets lurking in its intricate web of systems. No, in this age of utterly disposable product masquerading as art, Skin Deep is a game I will remember, and you probably won't play it. I don't know, maybe you will. I sincerely hope that you do. Like, go play it right now. But as I say, I've been doing this a long time. I'm no expert, but you start to get a pretty good feel for this kind of thing. I've seen the countless videos pop up saying that gaming is supposedly dying, that people are bored, they've had enough, modern gaming is done, games are too expensive, they're all broken at release, broken down and sold to you piecemeal, and filled with microtransactions, and more importantly, they're all the same. They're all trying to jam some kind of tepid open world or live service template down your throats to keep you busy with menial tasks that keep you in the one game for as long as possible, maintaining just enough of a trickle of mechanical engagement to compel you to keep playing, to keep spending. Those videos that garner millions upon millions of views and endless positive sentiment from similarly bored people. Meanwhile, games like Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom and I Am Your Beast and Children of the Sun and Parking Garage Rally Circuit and Promise Mascot Agency and Desperate Speloti, and countless others continue to take over my life, representing combinations of genres and new ideas most AAA publishers wouldn't go near. They're releasing at a rate even I can't keep up with. In a world where we've almost come to expect AAA releases to be completely broken at release, and while I do have a huge tolerance for jank myself, especially from small developers, the technical polish on show from these games is exemplary, and you could buy them in a single purchase with no microtransactions to be found anywhere for the price of just one AAA or quadruple A game nowadays. You know, the last couple of times I've been to Gamescom in Cologne, one thing that has struck me is the sheer volume of people who will spend hours of their lives queuing, to the extent that they'd be lucky to play one other game that day for the exact kind of AAA stuff that represents everything people supposedly hate about the industry, that in some cases released publicly as early as a week later. Last year, the big names were mainly just showing trailers, and people queued regardless. Meanwhile, you could go to the indie section just next door and be greeted with endless booths of incredible games just ready to play, the devs eager to talk about them. It was such a nice atmosphere, celebrating true creativity, and all I could think was, this is where the attention should be. But despite the protestations we've talked about this whole time, people still seem to flock to known quantities. Part of the issue, however, is that it's not as simple as these games don't get enough coverage. In many ways, the act of coverage itself is unsustainable. Whether on YouTube or through a publication, covering anything but the known quantities, let alone doing it in a way that isn't super clickbaity, can unfortunately yield vanishingly, unsustainably small engagement. The kind that doesn't exactly mesh well with trying to keep the lights on, especially at larger organizations. I've seen many a site or blog or YouTube channel set up specifically to shine a light on the lesser known titles in the industry, and I've seen almost as many struggle to last for any significant length of time before either fizzling out completely or going where the sustainability is. Just talking plainly about indie games seemingly isn't enough. And it's certainly not the case that developers can just go indie themselves either. Those games, those indie developers and publishers, even if they've somehow managed to fund a project through to release, with games now taking so unbelievably long to create relative to other media, all while simultaneously dodging the bullet of venture capitalist acquisition and the now seemingly inevitable, infuriating human cost that accompanies it, have all kinds of issues of their own to deal with already. They're dealing with massive discoverability problems on platforms like Steam, where so much stuff is published every day that even those few games that do garner positive word of mouth just can't seem to get the traction in terms of page hits and sales that they deserve. Quickly move past for those bigger games where people know exactly what they're getting into. You have all these other titles with the biggest ad spends from these billion-dollar companies, which are therefore the ones that people see the most, the ones that get discussed the most, and crucially, that people seem to want to see discussed the most, queuing up for known quantities in exactly the same way people did at Gamescom. The real problem with modern gaming then, if there is one, is that there exist vanishingly few viable means through which to relieve people of this false notion that modern gaming is somehow stagnant or boring. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this video to go so solemn and serious the way it did. I came here to talk about how Skin Deep is brilliant. I guess what I'll say is that if you're rushing down to the comments to argue with me on the points I've made in this video, tell me how daft I am or whatever, at least do yourself a solid in proving me wrong and playing an incredible game like Skin Deep first. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that daft YouTube stuff. It really helps the channel and it means the world. A massive thanks as well to my patrons, who you can see on screen and are all getting access to exclusive, fully produced videos that aren't available here. Your continued support is what allows me to keep going with the work I do on this channel, and I seriously cannot express how grateful I am for that. You are all the best. Special thanks go to Ewan Patterson, David Butkus, Brendan Hess, Mason Miller, Alex O'Sullivan, Michael Tritt, Rickety Cricket, Cameron Siniceros, Charles J. Liu, Alistair Dunn, Vitautis Catharsis, Dolly Bowman, Young Condor, Danis Sikauskis, Christopher Faherty, Nicholas Villeneuve, Yoga Shishbande, Leah Chinello, Captain Knusprig, Bryce Snyder, Seapage Melt Limited, David Björk, Timothy Jones, Matthew Grover, Shardfire, Lynn Browning, Dallas Keane, Charlie Kimball, and Charlie Yang. And with that, this has been another episode of Writing on Games. Thank you all so much for watching, stay safe, and I will see you all next time.